This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
What is it about that school, Manassas High School, where he started that program, man? Like you got, people like Miles Davis talking about the high school in his autobiography. What is it about Manassas that made it such
I think
a magical
it
place?
must be in the soil and in the water because something. When I was a kid, I started out at Melrose, but I moved over to Manassas because every time I'd run into young musicians about my age or a few years older, like Frank Strozier and Hank Crawford, and every time I found out what school they went to, it was always Manassas. So I went over there, and sure enough, there was a beautiful tradition. I went to school there, as I said, with Frank Strozier and Harold Mayburn. Booker Little was my best friend there. So it was a beautiful time in schooling for us.
Right, and Matthew Garrett is the father of Dee Dee Bridgewater, right?
Correct. Matthew Garrett, the father of Dee Dee Bridgewater, and she is very proud of that lineage.
Wow, that's excellent. So why is that Memphis not really known as a jazz town? Or, we always think about Memphis, think about blues and barbecue and whatnot. Why not jazz?
Maybe because we all had to leave. This is the music of freedom and wonder, and you have visions that you want to share your music with the world. But the setup of Memphis and its place in society is that commercial music, popular music was the rhythm and blues of the era and area that I grew up in. And so there weren't many jazz gigs or people exposed to it. I think it's a question of exposure.
Right.
Because when you hear the music, it's obviously beautiful music, and it's a music of freedom and wonder and truth and light. And so we all had to go to New York.
And I know I spoke of the blues. How did the blues help you develop as a jazz artist?
Those guys are great communicators. And so it teaches you something about how to say, getting your music off the stage and into the hearts of the people. Because playing with guys like Wolf and Bobby Blue Bland, Junior Parker, Johnny Ace, BB, all that, those guys were great purveyors of song, and they could also move an audience. And I guess somehow we grew up and we were, I guess that's natural to Memphis.
Oh, excellent. And I also want to ask you this, and speaking of B.B. King, do you have any thoughts you want to share with us about B.B.?
He was a very warm and charismatic musician. He actually loved jazz and blues and gospel music too. So he always tried to hire the best jazz musicians to play in his group too, who could go both ways. Who could play the blues, but he liked advanced thinkers. So he was a very special man.
What about Bobby Blue Bland?
Bobby Blue Bland was very charismatic, and he also had this beautiful honey dripping voice to me. Very, very sweet and soulful. And the first gig I ever played was with him. It was Roscoe Gordon's band, and he was the featured singer with Roscoe. And he told me that Peaches was his theme song. We were driving somewhere in Arkansas, and he said, "Junior, you can mess up any song but Peaches, because if you do, you might get a spanking." And so I was a little kid, 10 or 12, and I was very frightened. And we played that night, and I ran out to the station wagon to hide while he was, I didn't want to get a whipping from him. And he said that, he came out and hugged me and said that I played Peaches better than anyone ever played it. So that was a great compliment, especially because I didn't know which song was Peaches. Yeah.
What about Howlin' Wolf? How was it played?
HowlIN Wolf was very, very special. He was probably the most, to me, the strongest impression that I remember of all the cats, because he'd come to town and he would hire us, and he said, if you play with Wolf, you eat pork chops. You play with the other bands, you eat neck bones. He paid a little more, and he dug the musicians. But the powerful thing about him, speaking of a communicator, he could shake a whole building, you know. Mm-hmm. And women were very taken with him. They tried to attack his pants and stuff, you know. So he was about a big man, 6'4", 6'6", and he was a very strong, mystical experience to be around.
Wow. What about Johnny Ace?
Johnny Ace also had a sweet voice. But the thing about Johnny Ace was he sang the blues so slow. Mm-hmm. And I figured one night I was going to learn how to, what he was doing, how he could maintain the perfect beat and singing this music. And because it was like, I figured some higher mathematics could be figured out with what he was doing so slow. So it was like a quantum mechanic kind of state to understand that. So I said, I'm going to figure out one night, I'm going to figure out what's going on. And I got zapped, and I was in the now. And so I could see where he could make that move, that beat anywhere he wanted to. He was special. Yeah.
That's excellent. Who was the greatest musician you ever heard?
Greatest musician I ever heard? Mm-hmm. Well, we all come from the Creator, so I'm going to have to say that I heard so many greats. I can't just name you one. But I tell you, in our town here, Phineas Newborn was the greatest I ever heard and experienced. And he heard me at 9 years old at an amateur show, and he said, you need lessons bad. I'd won first prize, and so he helped me. But he probably was the greatest early I ever heard. And then, of course, when I heard the whole of the music, there's so many greats, you know, Duke Strayhorn, there's Monk, Train, Sonny Rollins, you know, on and on, Miles, Clifford Brown, my great friend Booker Little was the most elevated man I ever knew of all the musicians. He was the most spiritual. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The best you ever played with?
The best I ever played with, I would still have to say that my remembrance of playing with Phineas, but I played with so many greats. I can't say any one. I'm sorry. I fall short of that because many great musicians have played with me, such as Keith Jarrett, Jack DeJohnette. I played with Alvin. The great Billy Higgins is also a great master that I played with. Did I mention Alvin? I played with him. I played with Jason Moran, great pianist. Now current drummer Eric Harlan, Kendrick Scott. And I'm still, and now I got this new pianist, Gerald Clayton. So I can't say anyone's greater because we all have humility for the music.
And what inspires you to create this music that you create?
It's just a strong inner light that happened when I was a little boy. It just came on me that this was what I was supposed to be doing. And fortunately, I was born in Memphis, and I was so inspired by all the music around me. And we had also heard Charlie Parker and Billie Holiday and Lester Young, and all that music. Duke Ellington would come to town all the time. Lionel Hampton, he had Clifford Brown with him, Quincy Jones, Basie would come to town. And so we always were looking up. Johnny Hodges would be playing with Duke, Harry Carney. So many of the creators of this music lifted me up.
And also, I mean, it's kind of envious, like the fact that you actually had a seat to history, a front seat to history, because a lot of these musicians that you just mentioned would stay with your with your mom at your mom's house?
Yeah,
Can you talk about that?
the theater had a situation where there weren't great hotels for these musicians, and the lady who ran the ticket booth at the theater knew my mother had a large house, and they asked her would she put some of the musicians up. So I had the great fortune of being around Lionel Hampton and Duke Ellington and all these great musicians, and it was just another beautiful thing. And my mother told Duke that I wanted to be and Johnny Hodges that I wanted to be a musician, and they said, no, have him be a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, because this stuff is too hard. So I was bit by the cobra at that time, and there was no turning back for me. And I tell all young people who love music to play it because you love it, and that's its reward. The thing about the world and how it's set up, it doesn't enter into the depth of the commitment.
I'm also interested, I love about jazz that everybody have their own signature sound. It's like how you write your name on a check or whatever like that. And I'm just very fascinated, how did you come up with your sound? Like, what was the epiphany when you created the concept for your sound?
Well, the elders always told me that you had to have a beautiful sound. And I was around hearing beautiful sounds from Johnny Hodges and Bird and all of that. And I used to practice long tones, you know, and to control the sound. And also I started out as an alto player, and then I took that over to the tenor. And so I think my sound is very personal, you know. So, and I'm still working on it. Yeah.
So also you was recently awarded the NEA Jazz Master, which is like the highest honor that you can achieve, recognition in this country this year. So congrats on that. And how does it make you feel?
Thank you. Well, it's an honor to be appreciated in the indigenous home of this, in the home of this indigenous music. So that's a great honor, and double honor that another Memphian, George Coleman, was inducted with me this year also. And then also another thing is that they only do they award maybe 4 or 5 people every year this award. And Berklee School of Music in Boston gave me a doctorate this year, this past summer. That was very meaningful also.
Yeah, I know we talked about the Thelonious Monk earlier about, I know he had a quote, he said, even if it takes you 20 years to get an audience, keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I want to wonder about you because, like, you know, it wasn't until 2012 you made your first concert appearance back in Memphis. It was almost 50 years later. It was 48 years later. And I'm saying, what kept you away for so long?
I didn't have an invitation. Just that simple. I played here in 1964 with Cannonball Adderley, and the next time I was invited to play here was 2012 by a young man, John Bass, out at the Rhodes University and the Mike Curb Institute, which he's a great part of. So they've been very responsive to bring me back every year, and it's been a great honor. I come from here. I feel more connected than ever now. I'm sorry about the gap of all those years, but it's a beautiful thing to come back and play this music at home.
And speaking of home, like, I just want to know, we talked about Jimmy Lunsford earlier. How important is his contribution to the quote-unquote Memphis sound, this very famous sound?
Extremely so. It's just like he's one of the people that his praises aren't sung enough. He's a great master, and one should find his recordings and familiarize themselves with his music, because he brought a great gift of quality to the music picture.
Also, I'm going to ask you this because I'm interested. I know Max Roach and Miles Davis had actually did some stuff with rap music and stuff like that. Have you done anything with rap or hip hop?
Well, I get invited to various situations. I play with a group from Nigeria, and they had a rapper from L.A., a young man. But I came as myself and I played. But I haven't had direct experiences of them inviting me. But maybe they don't know about me, I don't know. Because I know that I recorded a song dedicated to Gerald Wilson by his son, Anthony Wilson, a young guitarist who's very talented. And the producer of that track, who loved my playing and knew about me, works with Dr. Dre. So who knows what will happen. Yeah.
So you are open to playing with these guys? Like,
I'm open to all music situations of quality that if they touch me.
that's excellent. What was the most interesting? That's all right. I know. What was the most interesting?
Okay, yeah,
What was the most interesting music situation you've been in as a creative artist?
I'd have to say, since I'm into the now, I'd have to say the ones that I'm doing now are very moving to me. I have a quartet with Jason Moran, Eric HowlIN, and Reuben Rogers. The main quartet, and I have others who play in that sometimes. I have a very interesting formation with Zakir Hussain and Eric HowlIN called Sangam. And I had a wonderful relationship with the great Billy Higgins that remains with me. So, but I'm still going forward, and I have lots more to do.
Okay, I also want to ask you about your friend Ornette Coleman. Your thoughts about him?
Wait a second.
Okay.
I thought this was a Jimmy Lunsford.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we gotta go.
It's after 3 and he's got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is the last question.
Okay, Ornette Coleman is a very beautiful musician. He had an original concept. He came out of Bird, but he took that song and expanded into his own personal music. And he was a dear friend, and he was a genius, and he made a big contribution to our music.
Thank you so much, brother Lloyd.
Well, thank you,
We
sir.
love you, man.
All right, take care, brother.